Pierce Brosnan is widely known as the timeless face of James Bond, a symbol of elegance, control, and calm strength on screen. But behind that polished image lies a deeply human story shaped by repeated loss, emotional struggle, and quiet endurance. At 72, his life reflects something far beyond fame or cinematic success. It reflects survival through grief that most people could never imagine facing more than once. From a childhood marked by abandonment to the heartbreaking loss of his wife and later his daughter, Brosnan's journey reveals the emotional cost hidden beneath public greatness. His story is not just about Hollywood success, but about love, memory, and the strength it takes to keep living when life continues to take everything you hold closest. A childhood shaped by absence and emotional instability, Pierce Brosnan's early years were marked by separation, uncertainty, and emotional distance. Born in Ireland, he never truly knew his father, who left when he was only an infant. His mother moved to London for work, leaving him behind in the care of relatives for most of his childhood. This created a life where belonging always felt temporary. Each home provided shelter, but not emotional security, and he grew up constantly adjusting to new environments and relationships. Over time, he learned to stay quiet, observe carefully, and avoid expecting too much from people or situations. Even when his family structure changed and some stability returned, the emotional impact of early abandonment remained. These formative experiences shaped his personality, giving him both resilience and a deep understanding that love and stability could never be taken for granted. Discovering identity and the first spark of performance. As a teenager, Brosnan began slowly stepping toward a sense of identity through education and creativity. After moving to London, he initially studied art, not acting, trying to find direction in a life that had never offered much structure. Everything changed when he encountered performance almost by accident in a small theater workshop. Acting gave him something he had never experienced before, the ability to express emotion openly without fear of rejection. That discovery led him to formal training, where discipline and repetition shaped his craft. He worked tirelessly while supporting himself through small jobs, developing not only skill, but emotional depth rooted in lived experience. Acting was no longer just a career possibility. It became a way to transform personal history into expression. Through performance, he began building an identity that was no longer defined by loss or absence, but by creation and presence. The breakthrough and the road toward James Bond Brosnan's early career developed steadily through theater and small television appearances, gradually building recognition for his calm presence and natural screen charisma. His major breakthrough came with the television series Remington Steele, which unexpectedly turned him into an international name. The show's success introduced him to a global audience and quickly placed him in conversations about the next James Bond. However, the path was not straightforward. Contract obligations and industry timing repeatedly prevented him from accepting the role, even when it seemed within reach. These repeated near misses created a long period of frustration and uncertainty, where he was constantly associated with Bond but never allowed to become him. Despite setbacks, he continued working with patience, building a reputation that kept him in the industry's attention while waiting for the opportunity that still felt uncertain but inevitable. Becoming Bond and entering global stardom. The long-awaited moment finally arrived when Brosnan was cast as James Bond in GoldenEye. The role transformed his career instantly, placing him at the center of global attention and redefining his public identity. His version of Bond blended sophistication, emotional depth, and modern energy, helping revive the franchise for a new generation. Audiences embraced him as a perfect fit for the character he had been linked to for years. For Brosnan, this was both achievement and validation after a long journey of rejection and waiting. However, even as success reached its peak, he remained aware that fame is temporary and fragile. Beneath the public admiration, there was still a quiet understanding that everything built in Hollywood can shift without warning, a lesson he had already experienced in different forms throughout his life. Love, loss, and the first deep personal tragedy. Behind professional success, Brosnan's personal life was deeply shaped by love and eventual heartbreak. His marriage to Cassandra Harris became a central part of his emotional world, offering stability and family connection during his rise in Hollywood. When she was diagnosed with cancer, his life shifted entirely toward caregiving, presence, and emotional endurance. He stood by her through treatment, holding on to hope even as the illness progressed. Her passing marked one of the most painful moments of his life, not only as a husband, but as someone who had already known abandonment early in childhood. The loss reopened old emotional wounds while creating a new layer of grief that became part of his identity. It was a turning point that deeply influenced how he understood love, impermanence, and emotional survival moving forward. Fame, pressure, and the emotional weight of Bond. During his years as Bond, Brosnan carried enormous professional pressure alongside personal grief. While the world saw him as composed and powerful, internally, he was managing emotional exhaustion and unresolved loss. The demands of the franchise required constant travel, physical intensity, and a controlled public image. There was little room for vulnerability, even during periods of personal struggle. As Bond films continued, he became more than an actor. He became a global symbol that required consistency and perfection. Over time, this created emotional distance between his public persona and private reality. Even moments of success were layered with awareness that fame does not protect against suffering. Instead of offering relief, success often intensified the contrast between how the world saw him and what he was silently carrying inside. Family struggles and the pain of watching helplessly. Beyond career changes, Brosnan faced ongoing emotional challenges within his family. His son Christopher struggled with addiction, creating a long period of emotional stress, uncertainty, and helplessness. Despite efforts to support him, recovery was not linear, and the situation often felt beyond control. For Brosnan, this experience reflected a deeper emotional truth he had encountered throughout life. Love does not always prevent suffering. Watching a loved one struggle without being able to fix it added another layer of emotional weight to his already complex life story. These experiences shaped his understanding of patience, acceptance, and the limits of personal influence. Even in moments of deep concern, he continued to show up as a father, balancing care with emotional endurance in situations that offered no clear resolution. The loss of Charlotte and irreversible grief. The most devastating chapter of Brosnan's life came with the illness and passing of his daughter, Charlotte Brosnan. Her battle with cancer was both courageous and heartbreaking, as she continued to live with strength even as her condition worsened. Brosnan remained by her side throughout her illness, reliving earlier grief while facing a new and deeply personal loss. Her passing created an emotional fracture that permanently changed how he viewed life. The experience was not just sorrowful, but also cyclical, echoing past tragedies in a way that made healing feel distant and complex. For any parent, such loss is unimaginable, and for Brosnan, it became a defining emotional moment that reshaped his understanding of love, fragility, and human endurance in the most profound way. Life after loss and quiet emotional acceptance. In his later years, Brosnan gradually shifted toward a quieter and more reflective way of living. His relationship with Keely Shea Smith provided companionship and emotional grounding, not by replacing loss, but by existing alongside it. He turned to painting as a personal form of expression, using creativity to process emotions that words could not fully express. Advocacy work, especially related to cancer awareness, became meaningful through lived experience rather than public expectation. His life became less about performance and more about presence, focusing on family, memory, and emotional honesty. The grief he carries has not disappeared, but it has become part of his identity, rather than something he fights against. His story now reflects a quieter truth, that survival is not about escaping pain, but about continuing life with it integrated into who you are.